Hello, welcome back into my garage, and we're going to do a little project today where I'm going to build a book rack for my son's bedroom. Now, I built a shoe rack before. We're going to use the same technique. I've still got a mountain of the scrap wood left over that I can use up. That came from a company which came in and built a cupboard under our stairs, and they left us with a load of wood at the end. It's all really good wood, so let's make good use of that. So if you haven't watched that shoe rack video before, please watch it. I'll put a link up in the top up here somewhere. And once you've done that, please again go and watch the post-mortem video where I go through all the things that I did wrong in that video and in that build. I've certainly learned my lessons. Please learn what I did wrong as well. So I'm going to basically make something of the same design, slightly differently, because I'm going to put a plinth underneath for a little bit of added strength. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's start cutting some wood. So before I start, I thought I'd better introduce this new toy of mine. So I said before in the past, I'd love an MFT bench, but I can't really afford the space for that. So I found these. So I'm not sure how well it shows on the camera. This is a Porter Bench MFT Pro. I think I got this from eBay for about £70, including delivery. I've got a few isometric patterns on there and enough dog holes for me to use at this point in time. And yeah, this is its first outing, so let's give it a go. I've got a few bench dogs already for it. Sorry, just dogs, not from bench dogs, they're from UJK. So a couple of dogs already, a couple of things I can put in on the top to hold a piece off the top but stable, and then I've also got some dogs which work with my track saw track as well. So I'm going to hopefully use all of those today and see how well this thing works. One of the lessons I learned from doing the shoe rack is just to double check the square of the boards before you start cutting them. So this piece, this is uncut from what was cut in the factory. I can't believe that a company where you pay this much will make a piece of wood which is so unsquare. Now, excuse the bend on the camera lens here, but this from here to here is 940mm. And from there to there is 928, so there's a 12mm difference across the length of this wood, which is about, I think it's about 93 centimetres, 930mm. So you can see over here how much it tapers down. But the shocking one is, excuse me a second, if I flip this over, we shall line this up on here so it's nice and square. And here we go, right. This piece of wood, if we follow the edge here, is as bent as a banana. Look at that! Oh, give it thing. Oh. Oh. So one of the mistakes I made last time was when I came to do the routing for the back panel. I got the measurements wrong around, so I set the depth to the depth and vice versa. So I've triple checked it this time around. I think I've got it right. Fingers crossed I'm not going to do this wrong again. It wasn't a disaster last time, but hopefully we'll get it right this time around. So yeah, got the table connected. This time I can use the dogs. There's dog holes in the front of this UJK table, so they fit very snugly into my top, and yeah, that's holding that nice and secure. And so I've had to wiggle it around a little bit just to get the right angles for the length to get the panels in, but let's give this a go and see where we end up. Right, so now I've got to do the top. I've got to feed it straight in and then along and then stop for the end, because I don't want to route all the way to the ends because it will then be visible. So I've marked that with some tape in front of the blade, and now I'm ready to go and do that. So now I've got to lay out the position of the shelves from the top. So I'm going to mark them all down from the top. One thing I hadn't really expected, which is really, really helpful, having the dogs in here means I can align these two shelves exactly the same line and be certain that my measurements, if I project them from that side across, they're going to be in exactly the right place, which is something I couldn't do when I did the shelf build. So actually, added benefit, haven't really thought about, but I'm glad I thought about it because it's going to come in really, really handy. Unfortunately, my framing square is big enough to go across the whole lot, so that's a benefit. Right, so we've got the legs all marked up. Next plan now is to start marking the edges of the shelves to get those drilled and dowels in those. So what I've done is I've used a lot more dowels this time than I did on the shoe rack, just principally because books are heavier than shoes. So I've got 5 all the way along. I've clamped them all together and marked them all at the same time. That's not strictly necessary because I'm going to be referencing off these lines. So actually they could be pretty much anywhere on the board. What is more critical is that I get them halfway in each piece along here. That just makes the shelf line up a little bit better. So halfway through the depth of each one. I've got the measurements on the dowel guide already, but also I can use the halfway measurement where you use the 2 prongs and just wedge it against the 2. Done a little trial of that on a scrap piece. One went all right, one didn't go quite so well, but that's what trying it out on a piece of scrap is for. Yeah, so just now time to start drilling these bits up. Okay, so we're back. It's another day. Ran out of time the other day to finish the job off, so yeah, I've got to finish it off today. Next step then, drill the holes in the end boards we've got just here. Now, the thing that I remembered from the previous time I did this is that I shouldn't drill the holes too close together in the ends, otherwise I can't get the dowling jig on. So I'm just going to go and double check those measurements. However, I think I should be all right, because as long as I don't put the dowels in whilst I'm registering where to drill, I should be all right. So as long as I've only got one dowel in at a time when I'm doing the drilling, I should be okay. That's the theory anyway. Let's see how this goes. completely. I really need to get a better drill bit. Right, so the plan now then is to use a dowel inside of here, inside the holes I've just drilled, and then I can then use the slots on the side of the jig to position down the right place, and then I can drill straight down on top of my line down into there. Now what I was talking about earlier on is if I put this over the top here, you should see the problem. If this lines up with this, then this is right, this pin is right in the way. So as long as I don't put the pins in whilst I'm, I've only got one pin in at a time as I go along, then I should be all right. What I realised though is that if I start from this end and go this way, I'm also okay. So I'll probably just have one pin in at a time, don't need two or more, but I will also work across this way just because it feels the right way for me to progress across the board. So next thing to do, I'm going to try and clamp both these boards down so they don't slip. And then I've got to line these bits up, and then I shall start drilling holes in this board straight down. Oh my word, I need a better drill bit. So here we are a couple of days on since the last video. I've been working lunch times and that kind of thing during the week, so I've managed to drill all the holes in both sides, the top, the base, the shelves, all those holes are drilled. The only bits I haven't cut yet are the plinth down the bottom and the back panel, and then the holes for the plinth in the sides and that kind of thing isn't done yet as well. So today's plan is get dowels glued into the ends, and then do a dry fit and see how everything holds together, and then we might start gluing a few things in. Well, that was very annoying. Dropped the piece of wood on the floor and dented the corner quite badly. Not an easy thing to fix, this one. This is the face piece here. So this will be, the face is the bottom shelf. This is the top side, which doesn't look too bad. This is the underside, which looks the worst. This damage was here already. I know about that. That was okay. Yeah, try and find a way to sort that problem out. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be. I can't just cut another piece of wood because these dowels are all in one position, and the leg is then cut to the same size, or the positions are in the same place. So they basically mean cutting new legs, which I don't have the wood for. So yeah, we might just have to see how that goes and have a bit of a dent in the corner of the shelving unit. So let's try the reassembly again, this time a couple of different orientations, and hopefully it shouldn't fall to pieces this time. Okay, so this is what it looks like dry assembled. So still a few gaps here and there. I didn't want to push it together too tightly. Just before I glue the things in, I want to be able to pull it apart again. But yeah, all pretty tight, quite happy with that. Obviously you've got the damage there on the front, which, I don't know, might look alright. Not entirely sure. I don't really think I've got an option there. So the next bit to do basically is to now build, cut two pieces of wood that go from the top to the bottom, just inside, one front, one back, and that will then, the bottom shelf will then stand on those as well. Once I've got those sorted, we'll do the dowel holes for those as well, and then I've got some boards just at the back over there, which will be used for the back panels as well, so they'll be cut and put into place. Right, so here we are. The dry fit yesterday went really well. I've got all the pieces cut now, apart from the two plinth pieces, which are going to sit at the bottom of the bottom shelf, and the back panels. So plan today, measure up for the plinths, get those cut, get dowel holes cut into that and to the sides, and then glue everything together, then make the back panels. I've only got a limited amount of time today, so I'm going to crack on with this pretty quickly, and hopefully we'll get it all finished and done today. Now these ones I've set back further in, just so there's just a nice little reveal on the inside of the unit. I've just basically rounded up a few millimeters here and there to basically put it to, like, I don't know, 2.5 centimeters in, something like that, and that should just give me a nice gap there. Not too happy about the depth of these holes here. I think these should be pushed in a bit more. So I might just very carefully hand drill those out a little bit more. Just a couple more mil and then we should be fine. That's better. Much better fit. Yep, nice tight fit. Happy with that now. Right. Need to drill the other panel now. Right, that's the last of the holes now drilled into the wood. The last of the dowels are now ready to be glued in, and then we will go for another quick dry fit, and then we will stick everything together. Now, the one thing I did notice as I was putting this together is when I dropped this bit yesterday on the corner, I have managed to break this pin here. So I'm going to basically see if I can just chop that little bit off very carefully. I don't think it's going to cause a big problem. This is the bottom shelf, so it's going to be resting on that plinth that I've just made anyway, and the 4 pin should be enough anyway, so it's not really going to cause a big problem. It's going to be at the back where you're not going to see it, so should be absolutely fine. So I'm going to cut that off in a minute and then glue the rest of the pins in. Now I'm also trimming off the white end covering. As I drilled into it, it's bubbled up in a few places, and if I can take it off here, it should help get a slightly tighter fit on the end as it drops in. So I'm just trying to, this side looks alright, just trying to clean that up a bit. This panel didn't sit particularly tight against the side piece, so anything I can take off there to help it sit better is going to be a plus. Right, all done. Right, so here we go. Put it all together again for one last dry fit, and I've got a slight gap up here. In fact, I've got a bloody big gap up here, and similar on this next one up. You can just about see through there as well. So I need to try and sort that one out. The other thing I've noticed is this one is fairly level, but the height of this compared to this is out by a couple of mil. And again, this one's good. This one out a couple of mil. This one out a couple of mil. So that might make putting the back panel on a little bit difficult. So I might just have to get the saw out and just trim them up ever so slightly, just to get them to a decent height so I can get that back panel on properly. The other thing I need to do is up here in the corners, I need to get my chisel out and just take off that rounding from the router. Okay, I managed to fix the problem. I thought initially it was the dowel was going to be sticking out too far, but actually it's not. It was the holes that were drilled beforehand. So do you remember me saying I need to get a new drill bit? Well, I did. And the new drill bit, when the dowels go into the holes drilled by the new drill bit, they go in a lot better than the old drill bit. So I'm wondering whether the old drill bit was that blunt that it wasn't drilling, you know, it lost that much material on the outside. It was creating a much tighter hole for the dowels to fit into. So I've just re-drilled the holes using my guide with a bigger drill bit, or the right size drill bit, and yeah, they've gone in much easier. So I will re-drill the holes on this side when that bit comes off for the final gluing, which I'm going to get on with fairly soon, I think. So didn't put on camera, but I've now glued all these dowels, all these holes. These are all now pretty tight, fairly happy with them. I've got some new square edge things, some square edge clamps I'm going to use to try and square this up now. I've got to get the top on, and then we will measure up for the back panels. One thing I have noticed is that slight discrepancy on the back on the back panels. Yeah, it's still kind of there in a few places. I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that one. Or I'll just leave it and just hope for the best, which is probably what's going to happen. Anyway, right, let's get this top on. Well, let's square this bit up first, and then let's get the top on. And then we'll look at we'll probably then leave it to dry. It's coming out for lunchtime, so I've got a good break time. So we'll leave it to dry, come back, and then cut the back panels. So I've only got 4 of these squaring guides, and I've got about 6 clamps, so I'm not going to be able to get all of it all squared up, which is alright. I will go with some happy mediums somewhere, and just try and get the centre squared up maybe, and then we'll get the bottom squared probably. Right, that's that one. Fit. Can't square the bottom up. That should fit. No, not quite there. Not sure why though. Oh, doesn't fit. Can I use that on there? Yeah. Right, let's get this one on here. Nice and square anyway. So is that. Excellent. Right, happy. Now, I've got some longer bar clamps that I can run along the bottom just to bring the front edges in. So I'm a bit worried they're a little bit splayed out like that. Just going to find them. I think my camera's still working on that bit, but now I've got bar clamps in down the bottom. That's pulled the whole unit together a lot better. So getting much more clamped up now. I'll try and get the top on. I've got some other clamps just to the side. I would see if I can fit those on over the top as well. I'm not sure they're going to stretch though, but I'll give it a go. Right then, all glued, all attached together, all clamped up, all nice and square. These little corner hairs now all chiseled out. So I'm just going to leave this now, have some lunch, and we'll come back. The glue should be dry, and then we'll cut the back panels. Okay, quite a few hours later. Been doing some other stuff in the house. Clamps are off. I've just measured it, relatively square, about 5mm difference across the diagonals. I'm not too worried. So plan now, measure it up for the back piece. It's going to be done in 2 pieces. So there'll be 1 piece here and 1 piece here. So yeah, we'll get that all measured up and work out what the measurements are. Final clamps off of this, and then we'll start cutting down here on the table. Right, so that should be all the cutting over and done with now. It should just be a case of getting the unit back on here, panel pinning these 2 back pieces onto the back of the unit now. So I can do that quickly now because dinner's going to be ready anytime soon. Right, back's all on. Had a slight problem, you can't really see it on the camera from this side. There's a pin that's blown out from the far side, and that's going to be quite visible. I don't know what I can do about that. Yeah, might see if I can pull the pin out with a pair of grips or something. Next job, just filling a little dent on the front as well, and then it's good to go up into the bedroom. Well, it could be a little bit better, but it's better than it was. And so here it is in its final location in my son's bedroom. It's now fully loaded up with books, and it's making finding a book for him much, much easier at bedtime. So really pleased with how the project's gone, and I will cover off some more bits in the post-mortem.